Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gaming with me, Tony Mo, and we're here today to recap on what we saw last night or early this morning, depending on where you live, over at the PAX East event with the Star Citizen Dogfighting module reveal, because my god, was it glorious. Was it so glorious. That helmet, that PBR, that G-Force, so much wonderfulness everywhere. And of course, towards the end of this though, I'm going to do a little speech because I think some of the backers, the supporters of Star Citizen, forgot the reasons they backed the game. But let's get to that later on. Let's go ahead and kick it off with what we saw. Of course, Chris Roberts shows up on stage looking like a boss. I mean, who the hell shows up to a gaming convention like he did with the game in pre-alpha, pre-alpha, what becomes before alpha? 0? I don't even know, man. The game is in such an early state, and he actually walks up on stage. They got a bunch of technical issues they had. They finally get it up and running, and he shows off his game in real time. No pre-rendered BS. No one wants to see that. I didn't come here to see pre-rendered crap. That's for the AAA noobs over at E3 to show us, and then never actually meet their target, their target renders. You know, that's not what we want to see. We want to see in-game footage, and that's what Chris Roberts delivered. Buggy or not, it was wonderful, and it was fantastic. So he walks out on stage. I got something planned for you guys before we show off the dog, man. I got a little thing. All of a sudden, screen fades black, cuts in. He's walking down a hallway to a door. His character's pulling his gloves on his spacesuit. Opens the door. There's the Hornet. Everything rendered in PBR. Absolutely stunning. Walks around the Hornet, gets inside the ship, sits himself in the cockpit. What's that sitting on the center console? Is that a helmet? Grabs the helmet, flips the helmet up in the air, catches it, slaps it on his head. Hangar doors open using that same sort of panel slatted mechanical system that I love so much on the footlocker in the hangar. Opens individually, and he flies out into space for the very first time, just in time to see two friendly Hornets streak past the front of his hangar. Just the best intro ever right there. I mean, just anyone who is interested in this game, anyone who isn't interested in the game was watching that, had a massive grin ear to ear on their face, and it probably stayed there the rest of the event because that was the best introduction ever. Of course, Chris Robertson flies out and very fittingly crashes into something and ruins his Hornet. We get to see some of the damage models. He then respawns. We get to see the helmet 2 more times because of a bug crash, and then he actually goes out and starts engaging those 2 friendly Hornets that we saw. This was when things got really good. A lot of small details showed up, and I was staggered by the amount of effort and passion and detail that we saw in the game at such an early state. I mean, pre-alpha, you don't expect to see any of the touches. It's obvious that everything they've ever told us about how they want to develop Star Citizen, the way they want to develop it, was completely true at this point. And if you think otherwise, you're a blind moron. Anyways, so he gets in, he actually starts engaging the Hornets, and he uses the missile lock-on system in the Hornet, which was instantly noticeable as a gamer. There was actually like 4 brackets, so basically the 4 pieces of a circle actually launched out, you know, in an animated way on his HUD, locked onto the target. When they were complete, they created a circle, and then he was able to fire the missile system. Small touches like that in the helmet, man, those are the signs of a very passionate and very talented development team, and that was just absolutely awesome to see. One of the biggest things, though, that went above and beyond was the physics and the G-Force system that was then used inside of the ship. So you're in this single-seater fighter ship, it's quick, it maneuvers super fast, snap turns, just snap everything. Your guy's gonna get thrown around, man. The human body can only handle so much. So we got to see the physics working. Your character's getting thrown into a seat, thrown forward, thrown left, throw right, all the G's are affecting him, and at the same time, you can actually black out. Yes. There is a G-Force system in place that when you pull too many G's, you will actually start to get tunnel vision, you'll start to lose it, and you'll have to hold on and try and just, just keep the G's just right so I can still kind of see, I can pull that turn to get on that other Hornet's tail. Man, that is going to make dogfighting super intense. I mean, the best pilots are going to be the guys that can push that limit and recover from it and get right back into combat. Absolutely stunning, man. On top of that, this sort of like rubble asteroid thing we were flying in was just gorgeous. Everything was gorgeous. At such an early state, the last thing you expect is to see a game that looked as good as Star Citizen did in that reveal, man, because I couldn't even find anything to nitpick about. I know they said there was elements that weren't working. I think they said in the video that they showed leading up to it that solar flares weren't working. Oh my god, it all looked crazy. Lens flares, I'm sorry. It all looked just epically good. And then when he actually started firing on targets, the sound effects for the lasers, I believe he did actually have the Gatlins, the regular metal-based rounds. It all sounded absolutely wonderful. And again, at such an early state, man, I can't even imagine what the game is going to look and sound like end of 2015, 2016, whenever the hell it actually releases, because Good stuff there. Really good stuff from the CIG team. And again, props to Chris, everybody at CIG, everyone who's been working in that game, to actually showing up to PAX East with a game in this early of a state. I don't think that's ever been done before. Anyone showing up to a convention and actually showing in-game footage of a game. More than that, demoing and letting people play their game in such an early state at a convention. No one has done that before. No one. They show up with pre-rendered games. They show up with games running on PCs when they're console games. I mean, look what Nintendo did with the N64 back at E3. They showed up with Mario 64. It wasn't even running on the N64. There was a supercomputer hidden under the table running it. Chris Roberts shows up with some donated Alienware computers and said, here's our game. It's going to crash. You're going to love it anyways. And we did. It was it's so good, man. Okay, moving on. There was more than just that tiny snippet, of course. They actually sat down and broke out a small roadmap that they've actually created, letting us know what's going to be going on in the first patch of Dogfighting, and then, of course, moving forward. So to start, a lot of people were curious about the ships. We're going to be able to fly the Hornet base model, the Avenger base model, as well as the 300 series. I forgot which one they actually said. I think it was the 325i, which is sort of the, the fighter version of the 300 series. So those are the 3 ships. They did say that if you don't own a ship that is in the Dogfighting module, they'll give you one that is most equal to the ship you already own. So we'll see how that works. I sadly only own an Avenger, an M50, and a Aurora, so I'll probably be flying out my Aurora, but that's just fine by me. On top of that, we got to see a taste of the game modes. There's going to be a free flight mode, so you can just simply fly around. That's great, of course. There's also going to be team deathmatch, free for all, capture the flag essentially, which is capture the core, and we're also going to see a horde mode called where you defend from vandals. That's awesome, right? The question I want to know is, can you hijack a Vandal Scythe during that horde mode? They didn't answer that. You probably can't, but I would be very happy if you could. They then, of course, gave us a pretty decently detailed roadmap of what's going on down the future. We saw, possible steps for first-person boarding. The larger ships, multi-seat ships, are going to be coming in right after. We're going to see the ships, as soon as they're finished, are going to be getting putting in. So as soon as the Avenger, as soon as the Cutlass are finished, those ships will be put into the game. We'll be able to fly those in the dogfighting module. And the other great thing was the idea that they're not just doing dogfighting as a team deathmatch thing. As Chris said, they didn't want to do it. It's actually in the fiction. So there's a company that they've created who creates this dogfighting module that people can come join in, sort of a virtual reality thing. That's all very cool. We want to see things in fiction, It's if you're going to make a game like this, I think you have to do that. You can't just make elements and then try and mash them together. I mean, you're already in the development process. Why not create fiction and implement everything into the world as you go on? And that's what they're doing, and that is really exciting. I mean, that just makes it, more exciting than it already was. So really great to see. Also really great to see that they made point of slapping that small notice in the corner of all of those roadmaps saying, everything is subject to change. Even the final release date of the game, because if there's one thing I've always had concerns about, it is the fact that the game is going to come out in 2015. I just don't know that that can happen. Frankly, I don't care either way. If they make it come out in 2015, that's great. I have no doubt in my mind that, Chris would allow the game to be released early when it wasn't finished. He's going to keep working on it until he thinks it's right, and then they'll release it. Obviously, we're getting small elements in between, but again, he knows when to release these elements. And, for someone who's never done this before, he's done game development, never done anything like this. He makes it look like he's been doing it his entire life. I'm extremely impressed with him and, of course, the entire team at CIG, as I said again. Now, you all may sound like, well, you're just kissing ass and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not. Because you know what? This is the second part we have to get to now. Star Citizen is a game in pre-alpha. It's probably earlier than pre-alpha, actually. It's in very, very early development state. And it's going to have bugs. If they had shown up to the PAX East reveal and somehow given us a build that didn't have bugs, number one, I would say that they're lying. It's all pre-rendered and pre-canned. Number two, I would say that the game was crap and it obviously didn't have any technical anything going on to make it difficult to push it forward. That obviously wasn't the case. It crashed multiple times, as we should expect from pre-alpha. One of the great things, though, amongst all of that angry people might have not noticed, was Chris talking about actually pushing the limits again with the game, which is what I want to hear. The point of Star Citizen, when he originally revealed it, was to push PCs, to push the systems. And one big thing that stood out to me was their talk of getting rid of the 32-bit sort of development system that CryEngine currently uses, that almost all, as far as I was able to tell from some research, game engines use is 32-bit. And they're going to push it to a 64-bit. Yes. Everybody knows that 64-bit's just better. It's that simple. Why do you have 64-bit OS on your computer? Because it's better. It allows me to run more RAM. No one wants to have 32-bit. The same thing goes for game development. Everyone's been working with 32-bit. Chris says no. Why would we do that? To get to the level of just quality and precision and depth that we want, we need to go 64-bit. We're going to make that happen. That's what I want to see, man. That's why I back Star Citizen. That's why I spent $100 on the game. That is what I want to see. Now, for all of you freaking out about the reveal and crying because there was a crash and they should have done this, no, they shouldn't have done anything except show up and show us what the point that they had gotten to. They're not here to try and give us a polished product freaking 2 years from release. That's not their job. Their job is to develop the game, to make games. They don't have to sit there and try and polish up this tiny little segment just for us. They need to just develop and get to the state that they were able to get it to, show it to us at its natural state, unmodified, unrendered, no BS. Let us check it out, then go back to developing the game. And when we get our hands on it, we'll get our hands on it. We'll test the bugs, we'll break the game some more, allow them to fix it, and continue the journey forward through game development. We're not here to complain. We're not here to try and tell them how to develop the game. They're creative minds. They have their own talent. They don't need our infinite feedback. Do they appreciate our feedback? Yes, I'm sure they do. Do they need to hear someone tell them what color the inside of the Hornet should be and whether or not that you should actually put PBR on that small piece with the aiming reticle? No, they don't. That's your opinion. They're game developers. They can handle it. They've been in this industry for a very, very long time. I've always been a pretty big advocate against what people call constructive criticism because I don't actually believe a lot of it exists or enough of it exists that it's actually worth listening to these days. It's just a lot of people shouting their own personal opinions, not actually caring. When the game comes out and we actually get our hands on the dogfighting module, we'll break it. We'll give them more bugs to fix. That's our job. It's not to sit here and be an absolute hypocrite. Now, why would you be a hypocrite if you're sitting here complaining about bugs and about all the development process and they should have done this, they should have done that? When you hopped on to support Star Citizen, you did it for the same reason everyone else was. Not just because it looked gorgeous, not just because it was the game you've always wanted, because it was the idea of a massive, insanely well done AAA quality title without the restrictions of AAA publishers. Without that publisher leaning over their shoulder, holding back innovation, holding back creativity. That's what you hopped on board for. Am I right? Am I right? Well, you know what? The way that things work when a developer allows us to gain access to a game this early on is that there are bugs. The game is broken. Every single time you add a line of code to a game engine at this early of a state, it's like laying down a new bomb, okay? Every single time you put down that code, it arms a new batch of C4. And every time you put down another code, it sets off that previous batch. Those bombs are code just waiting to be broken. That's what happens this early in a state. It's an endless stream of bombs being set off, being deployed, being set off, being deployed. It's just never ending. It's going to last a very, very long time until they get to the point where those bombs can finally be suppressed and they can start disarming them after they set them. That's the best example I could come with to put it through some people who maybe don't understand quite exactly why there were bugs at pre-alpha, which just blows my mind. I mean, maybe I should define the definition of pre-alpha because there's going to be bugs. There's nothing we can do about that, and it's not for us to be concerned about it. We're supposed to show up, appreciate the fact that they even bothered to show us the game this early in development, because had this been a AAA title, we wouldn't be seeing anything. Everything would be hidden behind cloak and mirrors. They would have showed up to PAX East with some pre-rendered gameplay footage, and that would have been the end of it. And we would have all thought, oh, that looks amazing. It's so good. It looks wonderful. I can't wait to get my hands on it. And it probably would have never the game would have never turned out like that, because publishers, death grip on the developer's throat. You can't do that. It's not going to sell well enough. So check yourself, guys. Check yourself. Remember why you're here. Remember the reason that you supported Star Citizen in the first place. Don't be a damn hypocrite. And enjoy what you saw, because, man, did it look really fantastic. And if you couldn't appreciate and enjoy what you saw there, I suggest you get a refund from CIG, you sell your package on the gray market, and you just go disappear until the game finally releases and come back then and enjoy it then, because you obviously can't handle participating in such an early access development cycle that Star Citizen is doing here. But as for me, and as for a lot of other people, we loved what we saw. I can't wait to see more. A big congratulations to the team at CGI, to Chris, everybody there for what they've done. Give them a round of applause, guys. Genuinely ballsy to show up to PAX East with what they did and show us what they did. I'm super impressed, and I hope at the end of the day they were all very happy with what happened and very happy with the reveal, and that they can actually go home and maybe get a good night's sleep when they return from PAX East, but I know they won't, because they're just not that type of people. If you guys have any questions for me personally about my thoughts, for those of you who maybe aren't into Star Citizen, don't know what the hell I'm rambling about, and those of you who are, I want to actually know what ship you plan on flying into the dogfighting module now that we know the 3 ships we're going to be able to choose from: the Aurora LN, the Hornet, and and the 325A. Are you actually going to go out of your way to buy one of those ships now, just so you can fly in the dogfighting module? Were you someone who didn't back the game, and after seeing the dogfighting module last night decided to back it? Let me know all that and more in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys in the verse.